Hey Limitless Nation, today you're in for a real treat. Today you get to learn directly from Viktor Grant. With over 30 years of experience, Viktor Grant is a disruptor and social innovator. He is a recognized expert in the creation and maintenance of virtual communities. He is also responsible for pioneering multiple technologies in the computer industry and on the web. His expertise includes pioneering the use of social networking, multi-user roundtable chats, artificial intelligence-based e-commerce systems, viral marketing services, and others. He is also a piano composer, mixing classical solo piano, relaxation music with jazz improv. Be sure to get a pen and paper for this one, as there is a ton of knowledge bombs coming up. In today's masterclass, you are going to learn directly from the master himself, Viktor Grant. Let's dive into it.
Well, before you dive into today's masterclass session, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. It allows you to receive notification about every single time we have uploaded a new video and showing you how to live a limitless life. Now, if you want to dig deeper on what you need to do to hunt your future, make sure you watch the interview that I've done with Donna Vaughn at huntyourfuture.com. It will show you how you can hunt your future on every aspect of your being. Plus, you're going to receive tips and secrets on what you need to do to tackle your days on a regular basis. Now, let's dive into today's masterclass sessions.
Hey, welcome, Viktor Grant.
Hey, good to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Viktor, is there anything that we did not mention in the bio that you'd like to share with the Limitless Nation?
What I would say is, among other things, I love to surf. Surfing is my passion, and I'm also a scuba diver and a skier. I love thrill sports, and my newest passion now is ziplining.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love ziplining.
I did see that on your profile picture. That was an awesome video, by the way.
Thank you.
Now, Viktor, here at the Limitless Nation, we have a tradition of starting each interview with a limitless quote. Do you have a quote that you have embedded into your life on a daily basis?
Immediately, as you mentioned that question, 3 or 4 quotes came to mind. I have to pick one.
Well, you can say all 3. That works too.
But, it's no longer appropriate anymore. A buddy of mine used to joke about it. I used to say, always be blogging. But blogging's not popular anymore, so now we just write on Facebook. But, you want to think about this idea that your words have this resonant ripple effect. So it's almost like, there's a still pond, almost like this bridge behind me, right? But there's an ocean below that. But, if you throw a rock in a still pond, it's going to have all these ripple effects. But with these waves that are happening down below the ocean, like you can throw a rock off this bridge, even though it's really, really high, it's not going to have any iota of a difference unless you hit a sailboat beneath it, in which case it's going to be really harmful. But I think what we need to do is have more stillness in our lives, and the more calm that's there, the greater that ripple effect happens, because you notice the ripple effect. When you're trying to throw stones into an ocean, it has no effect. When you're throwing a tiny pebble into a still lake at sunrise, it has a huge effect, and you can see it extend for miles.
Right. That makes sense. That's a really unique analogy as well, because it seems like everybody has so much noise and clutter, even on social media and all of that, that once you get rid of all that, it becomes this calm lake, like you just said, and then you add one thing, and then it creates a massive ripple effect.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is the world of the digital space. Everything's retro right now. Telephones, right, are back in style. Analog is hot. Records are coming back into fashion. Vinyl, thank goodness. I wouldn't be surprised if we start readopting the cassette tape. We've gone so far into the digital realm that people just want to connect, mano a mano. And I think what we're seeing is a big change that's happening in the world. Take a guess, what percentage of transactions are actually completed on the internet? Out of all of the transactions and all the communications and all the stuff that's there, I want to ask you, what percentage of transactions are completed on the internet?
Well, it depends. If you're talking to an Amish community, it's almost zero. But if you're talking to somebody who's living in the city in today's modern age, or a millennial for that matter, I'm going to say 70, 80%.
It's actually 6%.
Oh,
That
wow.
includes all email, all Amazon, everything. But 93% of decisions are made based on influence from the internet.
Wow.
But the transactions themselves, and this actually is a stat that comes from Google. So what we're seeing is people make decisions based on their information that they receive through social media and other things like that. And so I've been an advocate now that we need to start shifting away from this idea of selling online to this idea of informing people online. And the selling actually happens in live events or in webinars or a personal connection that you have with someone. And that really is the essence of what we're seeing right now.
Right.
And take a guess how many people other than yourself on average need to endorse a product before a transaction occurs.
4?
It's actually 5.6.
Okay.
So
Closer.
so that's yes, 5.6. That's 6 people. It's almost like the 6 degrees of freedom that Bucky Fuller talks about, or the 6 degrees of freedom. When you look at a geodesic or you look at the EarthGrid logo, earthgrid.com, you see that on any given node, there's these triangles and there's 6 possible nodes around it. Bucky Fuller found that extends a sphere into infinity. You can keep dividing it and subdividing it. You actually never need more than 6 connections. We're approaching that threshold right now through the internet by having 6 people endorse your product that people know, like, and trust. Now, here's another number. 73% of people who buy something, they want to trust that company, and they need to trust that company before they will buy from them. And that's why it's actually better to sell on a trusted brand like Amazon than to try to have your own website and collect credit cards over it. Because people don't necessarily know you.
Right.
They don't know if they're actually going to get it. Or PayPal, for example. PayPal is a trusted brand. They know that if for some reason you don't ship the product that you promised to ship, then PayPal will intercede on behalf of the customer. So it goes both ways. I think that's why Amazon has grown so large. I believe is the reason why Amazon has grown so large is because of the human factor. There was a recent documentary where there's all these people, there's tons and tons of employees working at Amazon, but they're all inside these warehouses. And they're driving around on scooters, and they're having to grab things off the shelf and put them in boxes and ship them out. Well, now with Whole Foods and all the other acquisitions that Amazon is doing, they're having people out there. They're making movies, they're making television, they're moving their tentacles out, because they recognize the buying process has shifted away from the online space into the physical space.
Right.
One of the initiatives that EarthGrid is seeking to do, and if I was to raise capital for a company, it would be for this one thing only. It's to initiate a conversation that begins online, but gets completed through calls, voice chat, with people, with a human interaction, without me having to be that person that does it all the time.
Right.
Okay. Everyone wants to have a personal conversation. When I was at Microsoft, I had an account manager, and it was really fun. I would be hanging out. I wasn't at Microsoft. I was a partner with Microsoft. I was what's called an independent content provider, and I had a channel, Personal Growth and Leadership. And I was interviewing people like Deepak Chopra and Jack Canfield before he wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, Andy Grove, who was the chairman of Intel. Right. We were all talking about the future. We were all talking about this world that was coming. And at that time, the internet was on dial-up modems. It was, it was very, very slow. You had to make a decision to deliver 2,000 words of text or a single picture. That's how the internet was at that time. In many cases, we had interactivity that surpassed the social networks of today. We had 2,000 or 3,000 interactions and engagements rather than 50 or 60, which is what most people get on Facebook these days. So because it was a centralized location, it was really, really exciting. It was an exciting time to be alive. And the technology, even though it was really limited, it brought together community. It brought together these virtual communities. And what I observed that when 2,000 people were focused, like on Deepak Chopra, for example, someone from the audience I would think of a question to ask, and someone from the audience would actually type the exact question I was thinking of in the chat. It didn't happen at 1,000, but as soon as you crossed 2,000 people, there was this global mind that occurred. It was extremely exciting. And it's really tough to get 2,000 people focused today because they're so distracted.
Right.
In many respects, the 90s were way better on a per capita basis for us to have community than even the internet is today. In many respects, and I'll go on record as saying that, the internet was like 3 steps backward from interactivity and what's possible with digital technology. And I think that because it was public, because it was all out there, all it ended up doing is creating this huge distraction. And no one really knew, because there were no barriers to entry. That's part of the problem. Right now, it's getting a little bit better because of technologies such as security and SSL certificates and browser and privacy and all this other stuff that we see in the world is really just a reflection and an adaptation to the barriers of entry of excellence that you needed to have in order to be a digital marketer in the 90s. To be a digital marketer in the 90s, you needed to invest like $10,000, $20,000. Today, you can go buy a $10 domain name and get a free website.
Yes. Now, Victor, if we had to go back in time just a little bit, just before you started to become this innovator, this disruptor, what would you say was a big challenge that you had to overcome before you got to that point?
It really has to do with people paying attention to the things that matter, disregarding the things that don't matter. And the distinction is things that matter are sort of these universal laws or universal principles. And the things that don't matter are these distractions. Many people call them like
shiny objects.
Yeah, shiny objects is part of it, but at the core of the shiny object syndrome is this feeling of inadequacy that the product is going to give you something that you're lacking on the inside.
Right.
Whereas if you handle the emotion of lack on the inside, then you don't crave that thing on the outside. And a lot of marketing today is really just about that, hey, this is going to ease your pain.
Right. Now, Victor, when you started out, so are you telling me that just before you became this amazing innovator who just disrupting the entire system and just changed a lot of it, and we'll get into that in just a minute, you basically were finding that it was being difficult to be found and heard? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was very difficult to be found and very difficult to be heard. And we also found that the majority of things that people wanted were impulse. After I left the virtual community space for a span of time, I got involved in working on e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of us were thinking about, okay, so how is the online world of shopping going to look? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to be like? And we started organizing products into boutique stores. I had this idea back in the early days that, a website should not be the same website for the same person. And I actually got that idea in 97 when I invented this software. Like, it was the very first black hat SEO software that was out there. Basically, what it would do is there was this newsletter that was being published of, like, about SEO, the origin of SEO from my friend and mentor, business partner, Bob Heyman. He coined the term search engine optimization in 95 with the band Jefferson Starship. 1 year later, it caught on as SEO, okay? And then there was a search engine watch newsletter, and it would say, okay, how many times you repeat the keyword on the page before it ranks to the top of the search engines. And it varied from Alta Vista or Lycos or InfoSeek or any of the search engines at that time. This is before Google. And they published these numbers, and they would change every month. And so every month you could put this. So I thought, okay, well, why don't I take the numbers from the report, put it in my little software, and then generate a page that is optimal for that search engine. So if the search engine is visiting my page, they're going to see the kind of page that they want to see. And if it's a human, they're going to see a nice pictures with graphics and pretty colors and all that kind of stuff. And so that was like the beginning of really disrupting the internet. It was extremely disruptive because I could rank in all 10 positions, not just the first position, right? Now you can't do that anymore. But the idea was showing a web page that is different. There's a word in the industry called personalization. So I guess I would be known as the father of personalization. I had this idea that instead of a website being the same for everyone all the time, the website would tailor its content based upon your relationship with that website.
Okay. And
that became later on this idea that people who buy this, well, we recommend you buy that too. And that's what we were working on back in at the cusp of the 90s up to like 2000 was that idea. We had numerous conversations with Amazon and other companies right there about that idea. So that idea of personalization really was at the beginnings, like probably around 96, 97. is where we first put that prototype into effect. And the search engines were like, oh no, we can't do this. So then they started having, there was a word called human indexers. So what they did is they started hiring employees that would go out to the search engine and they would verify, oh, here's what the search engine sees as the website. And then they'd have a human go there and see, oh, is it the same thing? And it added this whole layer of overhead. And then a lot of the search engines now have, still to this day, have human indexers that look at your website, they review it, they figure out the categories. It's not just what most people think. It's like this robot spider that's going out there and interpreting websites. It's not like that. They're actually human beings that are doing that. If the technology that we invented back in the 90s didn't exist, we probably wouldn't have personalization today. But think of all the things that have happened because of personalization, because of this idea that what we show you on your website should be different based on who you are.
Mm-hmm. Now,
right?
Victor, fast forwarding a little bit, because we basically agree that when you started out, your biggest challenge was you couldn't get heard, and then all of a sudden you had this idea to have this invention to basically become, I'm not going to say father of, but you developed a very creative and unique search engine optimization tool, we'll say, that allowed the websites to see what they wanted to see and the people to see what they wanted to see. And that really helped propel you to really start your momentum to becoming the innovator and disruptor, because that, I can definitely see how that disrupts some things. And I can see now, because in a past life, I used to do a little bit of SEO. So that was a really interesting history lesson for me. But
yeah.
Fast forward a little bit further. Can you tell me in a couple sentences, what are you working on right now?
Hope you enjoyed the masterclass session so far. Before we get into the second half of the session itself, it is very crucial for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I really don't want you to miss out on another masterclass where I'm going to share with you what other expert celebrities, Fortune 5000 companies do to become successful and live a limitless life. So make sure you subscribe right now, and every single time we upload a new video, you will receive a notification bell. This allows you to enjoy the masterclass on the regular basis. So make sure you subscribe right now. Well, as you are ready, let's get into the second half of the masterclass session.
Well, EarthGrid's working right now on a disruptive search engine that uses Microsoft's Azure platform. And it is, people have found it as a more relevant search engine. Let me explain the distinction there. There's still ads, and Google is our advertising partner because Google delivers, I think last number I saw is like 93% of the world, 90% of the world's advertising is delivered by Google. So there's some ads there. However, we are not doing any text ads. They're all visual ads. Okay. Instead, where the ads in most search engines are, which are text-based keyword ads, we have member lists. So if you go to earthgrid.com and you click on list your website, the first thing it's going to ask you to do is put in your website. Then our spider will go out there and fetch data on your website, like your title, your description, your keywords, and it's going to say, hey, here's what we see. Did you know this is what your website is all about? And you'll have an opportunity to create a listing. It's just like the early days of Yahoo, except we added a spider that goes out to your website and allows you to list your website. Well, this causes you to create an account, if you will, inside of EarthGrid. Once you have an account inside of EarthGrid, you have access to search triggers, which is my Ninja SEO research software. So with one mouse click, I can demonstrate it for you. I could search through hundreds and hundreds of search results without even touching the keyboard. So I type in one keyword, it gives me all these results. I can go in there and click, 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 click. I've had people say, you know what, you should use this engine, this interface for medical research, for legal research, for patent research. It's an amazing interface, and we're making that available to people as part of a membership. Now, this membership model, I don't know if you've seen the TV show Silicon Valley, but they talk about a search engine that you pay to get rid of the ads. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. But Microsoft's our partner in this because they have really good data. It's actually better data than Google, but Google's more popular. Again, same analogy as I said before, people love junk food. The data that Microsoft has is really, really granular, very, very specific. And it's not so much emphasizing your authority, it's more emphasizing your content itself. And so we did some tweaks to the Microsoft algorithm, otherwise known as Bing, Yahoo, and AOL. EarthGrid uses the same data set, but we did some secret sauce to make it really, really relevant. And one of the newest things we just added was freshness. And so if you want to, you can actually click the freshness button, and that's a member-only feature. And the freshness button will refresh the page to like only showing you relevant articles that may have been published in the last 30 days, or even in the last week, or even in the last day. And so you can just click this button and bam, you immediately get the latest information that is based on its content, not its authority. Remember, Google is the voice of authority. They have maps. They know where you live. They are tied into the whole planetary ecosystem, and that's great. However, they are skewed to show the authority sites first. So like great examples are Realtor. I have a lot of friends that are Realtor. What do they have to do now? They have to list themselves in Zillow, okay? Because Zillow shows up in all the pages in Google. What do they have to do? They have to list themselves in Google Maps because all the things show up in there. That's, again, the voice of authority. There's no point in having a blog. There's no point in having a website because you'll never get found if you're the little guy. And especially when you're getting started, there's not a ubiquitous way of fairness. It's sort of like the people who already have a lot of traffic just get more. And the people who have no traffic have to spend a lot of money, and they can't even get past that first level of break even. So EarthGrid's mission and vision is to provide a traffic source that allows people to use our search engine to rank higher in all the other search engines. In other words, if you can't rank your website in our member-to-member directory, then you need some tweaking to do. You have to change a few words in your title. You have to change a few words in your keywords. You have to change a few words in your
shows them how to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for the viewers and listeners here at the Limitless Station, if they want to find out more about what you do in your business, as well as how EarthGrid's going, as well as how to get involved in all that, what's the website that they need to go to?
They should go to my.earthgrid.com and click on the tutorial button. The tutorial button will get you direct access into that if you just want to learn more. But if you have a website, what you want to do is click on the list your site icon or list your site button and go ahead and go through the wizard. That'll get you into my inner circle. You can also go to viktorgrant.com, which bypasses all of that. Victor with a K, VIKTORGRANT.com. That gets you straight in to the new initiative that we're doing. And the first question we ask you is your website. Now let me explain, there's a movement we're starting. And the movement we're starting is we're calling it the sovereignty of web movement, okay?
Okay.
If you use your name at yourwebsite.com, we sell you all of our products at 1/3 the price. So something that would otherwise be $300 a month is $100 a month. Something that's $30 a month will be $10 a month, right? And I'm creating a movement and encouraging other business owners to do the same. Why is that? Because the majority of the email that people are using for password reset, they're using it for notification, they're using it for announcements, for newsletters. All that business communication is being lost in the spam folders. And the big, I call them the email cartel, which are all the free email services. They're kind of like preventing businesses to deliver mail to their own customers. It's not just EarthGrid. Zoom goes to spam. Almost every single business communication goes to spam unless you have a business email that you own and can control. So we partnered with GoDaddy, a very large company, to provide email services at cost. So you can also buy an email address through us and you'll get into our inner circle that way. But think about it this way. You can buy an email address for, what is that? It's like $30 a year. So that's like under $3 a month. Okay. All right. The amount of time and energy, mental power you save with that. Okay. If we're selling you an SEO software like Search Figures, or a website builder tool like EarthGrid Eclipse, which is a business class, enterprise ready web builder, it's 1/3 of the price of ClickFunnels. You can build funnels with it as well. If we give you a huge discount on that, think about that. Is that worth that extra $3 a month in having an email address with your website? So think about this. Step number one, you want to have a website. Go back to the basics. Have a .com name. .net names are fine too. Back in the early days when I got started, there was no .com. It was .org, .net, or .gov.
Right. It's a different world now. Now, Victor, in moving forward a little bit, but at the same time taking a small step back, before you started becoming an innovator and disruptor, and before you even started EarthGrid and this movement that you're doing, what would you say was the one thing, if you had to pick like one or two words, that was really holding you back from really achieving your limitless potential that you've tapped into now?
I would say it's the limitations on doing automation in bulk. My very first company, I was with a friend of mine, Chris, in Hawaii, and we had this idea of bulk faxing businesses on the island of Maui. We had someone go in and type in all the fax numbers from the yellow pages, and then we published a fax newsletter, and we started bulk faxing everyone. So every time there's a bulk of any kind, there's always an opposing force to prevent the bulk. So that, you asked what's the opposing force? The opposing force is the attempt of some power that be to preventing bulk broadcast or bulk communication, because they believe that they should be the only ones that have that power.
Right.
Hence membership, right?
Right.
If you're a member and I grant you permission to see a piece of content, I don't need to bulk anything. I just grant you permission. So it's sort of like, here's my object. I grant you permission to look at that object. If for some reason you don't want it, or I don't want you to have it, I just disconnect the link. There's no harm, there's no foul. It's as if it never existed. But when you're broadcasting something, like even the case of the fax, it's irrevocable, right?
Right.
You sent this thing out there, it ended up on someone's desk, it ended up on the floor. You know, they called the number, they complained, they called the telephone company, they complained. What are these two guys sitting up there in Maui spamming me to my fax machine, right? And other people loved it. They wanted to become sponsors, and they wanted to advertise their business. So there's these two opposing forces between the people who want to do bulk or broadcast, which has a profit motive, right? And the opposing force that wants to prevent that. But the reason they want to prevent that is because your profit motive conflicts with their profit motive. It's really just a survival of the fittest. We actually are going back to what you said earlier. It's Darwin. We're dealing with Darwin's evolution here.
Right.
And I think the next step of the evolution of the internet, ironically, is going to be retro. We're going to go back to using the internet to tell us where we need to show up in person. And that's already starting to happen. Facebook is doing it extremely well. Google hasn't quite gotten that level of sophistication yet, but they're working on it. I would say the closest implementation of that is rock concerts. Google's very, very strong with YouTube and music, and then they can actually tie the tickets to the band right into the YouTube video. That's the kind of cool stuff. But I think as human beings, it's all about events. It's what I said back in the 90s. We needed a search engine for events. That's what EarthGrid was really originally started off, was a search engine for events that expired. In other words, I realized, why do we need, back in those early days, why do we need, like, you would type in the name of a company, you would bring up an event that they had 2 years ago that was still on their website. What's the point?
It's no longer relevant. Now, Victor, if we had to switch a little bit here from EarthGrid to you as an individual and living your limitless life, what would you say is a habit that you have adapted into your life that helps you keep going forward at this almost like blitzkrieg pace, which is German for lightning warfare, but it's just like, it's so disruptive, it's so innovative, it's so unique, as well as just, it's almost like you could see the future, but not in a crazy type of way, but just, you know what's happening.
Yeah, it's being a minstrel, playing piano on a cruise ship where 3,000 people are hearing, but they have no idea where the music's coming from.
Absolutely. So what's your habits?
So it's really being a composer and a musician is really where I'm going with this, because I found that is the soul connection that people can immediately get to, that bypasses the words, it bypasses the intellect, it bypasses all of the filters.
Okay.
Yeah. So really music. When you think about the word music, I wrote my very first song I wrote was called For the Muse. And the Muse was a Greek goddess that inspired music, right? The word music comes from the muse, right?
Okay.
It's something that inspires you. It's something that drives you forward. And music is really that vehicle. And I think music's going to become more and more important in bringing people together. Concerts,
Dancing.
events. I see that there's actually something now that I'm looking into, which is really kind of cool. There are a lot of people who are like these public speakers, and they're motivational speakers, they're keynote speakers. Well, there's something called a keynote concert, and that's something I'm actually looking to do more of. Is you don't just get me as a speaker talking about this stuff on stage with you in whatever topic you want, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Google,
Right.
YouTube, how to do any of this stuff, but I can also sit down at a piano and give you an experience of this alchemy that's coming together, which is how I think in like 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll get it. Just from listening to the music, you're going to have an idea pop into your mind based on the talk I gave you. That's where I really see it going, is being a keynote concert performer. And that's really where I'm wanting to take my career at this point, moving out from behind the desk into live events where I can strum the keys and inspire people through my music.
That sounds absolutely exciting. I like that. I like that a lot. Now, on to another topic that you and I both have talked about in the past in depth, reading. Now, here's a little bit of a different analogy, because I know we've talked about it, and you have an extensive and very impressive library. For all of those who don't know very much about Viktor Grant, you do have a very, very fine library. Now, if we had to imagine here in a hypothetical world that all of the books just disappeared and you only had enough money in your bank account to buy one book, but it could be any book, but that would be all the money that you had for your first book, what would be the first book that you would go out and get, possibly the one that just changed everything for you?
Probably be Net Gain. Net Gain was the first book that caused me to write a white paper that later on became the word virtual community, and that later on became the keyword social network. Net Gain by Hegel.
Cool.
Because that was like my origin story. When I read that book, I said, okay, I can do this.
Okay, that's awesome. Before you started EarthGrid, or as you were starting to do EarthGrid, because you have helped so many people, and I'm sure you're impacting a lot of people because you have connections, you can do a lot.
Oh yeah, that's what it was, is it freely giving your knowledge and freely giving your information and not seeking to protect anything.
That was the best piece
because
of advice.
As soon as you try to protect it, it becomes small, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people will go around you anyway. The patent system, we had a patent for one of our companies, and it didn't really matter because the people who looked at the patent, they just went around it by adding another tiny little feature to the patent. So there's really no point. There really is no point. The more you can freely give of yourself, the more powerful you're going to be. I mean, that one simple idea is so powerful. And what you have to understand, and this is the part that investors don't get, I've tried to explain it to them, they just don't get it. The innovator or the captain of the ship has to be on the ship. You can't just get rid of the captain. You can't get rid of you can try to keep the crew, but they're going to mutiny on you. Right? And it's not about saying, oh, the value is because you came up with this idea first. None of the ideas for EarthGrid or anything of my own, they belong to the planet. That's why it's called EarthGrid. It's the planet's idea of what the network should be. It's not Viktor Grant's idea of what the network should be. Mm-hmm. The internet is a paltry implementation of a global information network that could be, if we all got together and connected and stopped fighting each other. But as long as there's that whole notion of authority stamping down the little person versus connection and integration, that's going to be a dominant force that's going to prevent the connections from happening. So you need to give. And this is the thing you have to understand. The innovator and the people who create things, they don't just have one idea in their head. There's many, many more things that I have in my head and that I've also written down and other people know that we could build if we had the right support for it. But a lot of these things now involve cooperation with companies that are larger than that. Cooperation with companies like Facebook, cooperation with companies like Google, cooperation with companies like LinkedIn. And for us to bring this next level of community together, we actually need to work together, okay?
Right.
It's
right.
not just about, oh, we're going to build some technology that's going to be better than them. That's a really outdated mindset that venture capitalists love. Oh, what's your unique selling proposition? Oh, what's your unique this and what's your unique that? The uniqueness is how you're able to glue it together into a framework that creates synergy. Synergy can be engineered, but it has to be done through cooperation. And I think that's one of the key understandings you need to have, is it's about giving your knowledge to people who can do something with it.
Right, instead of keeping it for yourself and not letting it even grow or become what it could have been.
Exactly. Planting a seed at a cocktail party. They don't remember me planting that seed in them, okay? The universe, the planet, Earth, sends me a messenger to someone like a Bill Gates, like a Mark Zuckerberg, like a Scott McNeely, like a Andy Grove, all people who I've met, shaken hands with, and something pops out of my mouth. And they don't remember it, and I don't necessarily remember it until years later. And then I go, oh yeah, right? Oh yeah,
Right.
that was that conversation. But they were working into the future, and they were on a trajectory I'm not taking credit for. However, we were all there to help steer the ship. It's like a compass,
Right.
okay? It's like a compass. And the world that we were creating didn't exist yet. Other
Right.
things need to happen. Like the simplest analogy, this is something EarthGrid could not do. We did not have the resources for it. And Mark Zuckerberg did, because he had college roommates and he was willing to pay people to do this. Spot checking pictures. I called up a buddy of mine that had a huge community of 50,000 members. And I said, how do you get your profile picture of your community on your page? And I said, well, I wanted EarthGrid to do the same. And then he pointed to his secretary over there. And she says, yeah, she gets an email and we get a member's profile. They send it to us and it looks kind of like that. She cleans it up. She spends all this time and then she posts it in the online profile. And we've been building that database for 10 years. And I said, well, that's just not feasible for me. We need people to upload their own picture. So in the early days of Facebook, and I think even to this day, when you try to place an ad on Facebook, there is a time lag between the time it gets approved. There's a human being that's spot checking that. Okay, there are human beings that are spot checking the photos. Yes, they have artificial intelligence that's looking for that. But have you noticed there's no real nude pictures on Facebook, right? There are people that are constantly looking at the image problem. The image problem was something that I could not solve with the resources I had. Mark Zuckerberg solved it. So in an early build of EarthGrid in the member area, we linked to people's Facebook ID for their profile picture because we allowed Facebook to be the person that gave that. But then we encountered another problem. People did not know what their Facebook ID was, and they didn't know how to get it.
Okay.
So it's, again, the challenge with all of these things is knowledge, and we need to have digital competence in the world, and that's what will allow the ship to go forward. As long as we keep building tools, and one of my most hated words and most loved words recently is called simple. Everyone loves this idea of simple. Oh God, you gotta make it simple. Could you make it simple? You gotta make it simple. You gotta make it simple. Well, simple was actually an insult in the 14th century. When someone called you simple, that means you were a commoner, you were a peasant. That meant that the king could, if you want to get married to your wife, the king had first right on your wife before you did. That's what it meant to be simple. It's important to understand the origins of these words. And then later on it became this grandiose idea, oh, we need to make something simple. So now when someone says, make it simple, what I hear is take a complex concept and break it down. Break it down into components, actionable components.
Right.
But it's very simple. I cannot teach you trigonometry if you can't add. So you first need to know how to add. Then I can teach you trigonometry. Then I can teach you statistics and probability. And then from probability, I can teach you chaos theory. But it's a disservice for me to jump right into chaos theory without you even knowing how to add 2 + 2.
Right. I agree with that.
Right? So we need different levels of digital literacy to happen. And I think that's the one thing that hasn't really properly been quantified, because the economics of simple is trying to get people down a certain path. It's all largely being fueled by this device, a mobile phone. The mobile phone, like its job is you just talk to this thing and it interprets what you mean and gives you the simplest solution for that meaning. Whereas if we build a, I don't like to use the word hierarchy, but it kind of goes to this evolutionary paradigm. I like to use an analogy of like making money online. Like my friend spent $10,000 to make his first $47 sale on the internet. Is that really a good business model? No. But it's an evolution. He paid for his education. You see where I'm going with it?
Invested in
that education is what matters.
Yeah.
And I think people need to realize, especially on Facebook, people are a lot smarter than you give them credit to be. There's a saying in marketing, always right for the 12-year-old mindset. Guess what? I have found that the stuff that gets the most responses is when I go out and I talk about really complex topics in very simple terms. Okay? It's like I'm talking right now a lot about LinkedIn, and I'm actually part of a LinkedIn summit. You can actually go to linkedinsummit.net if you want more information on that. But the LinkedIn Summit is all about these experts coming together from LinkedIn and talking about LinkedIn marketing and talking about this business community it's fostering inside of LinkedIn. What's really fascinating is one of the most attended talks I've given in the last few months was a topic that I thought was so specific and so niched and so advanced. No one really, it was called LinkedIn profile targeting, and everyone was interested in it. While everyone else is out there going, oh yeah, just click this button and you'll make $1 gazillion for no money and for no effort. That's baloney. And people don't want that, really. Only the simpletons want, hey, click this button and you'll make tons of money. And guess what? None of them make any money because they're simpletons.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Now, Victor, if you had the ability to go back in time to your younger version of yourself, is there any one bit of advice in one sentence that you could give yourself that would have helped you get further along faster?
Yes. Go where you're invited.
Go
where you're invited. Instead of pushing, instead of spamming, instead of advertising and pushing and moving and trying to advance your career, you widen back and you get invited and you go there once the invitation is presented to itself.
Okay.
So go where you're invited would be that one sentence that I would say.
I've not heard that before, but that is really profound. Now, Victor, where can the Limitless Nation go to connect with you, to learn more about your business? What are your websites again?
You can go to earthgrid.com, and we have a nice, friendly prefix called my.earthgrid.com. So you go to my.earthgrid.com. You can go also to my new project that I'm working on right now called Fun Broadcasting.
Okay.
And Fun Broadcasting is all about video. It's all about creating videos. It's all about Facebook. It's got the letters FB, Fun Broadcasting, and fbrelevance.com, which is fun broadcasting relevant information. And of course, you can always Google me. I'm Viktor Grant with a K. And I think, EarthGrid is coming to a place near you. And if you go to our homepage, there's a 2-minute video that teaches you how to use the Brave browser, which is a great browser. Highly recommend Brave, brave.com. And if you go to earthgrid.com, it teaches you how to set up EarthGrid as your search engine, your default search engine inside the Brave browser. So it's fine. Use Google for Chrome. Use Bing for Microsoft Explorer or Microsoft Edge. Just use EarthGrid for Brave. Okay. And give it a try. See how you like it. And it's very, very simple. Let me break it down for you. Start typing something and hit the space bar. Unlike Google and other search engines, when you hit the space bar, it won't keep suggesting. With our search engine, it keeps suggesting, so you can go deeper. So hit the space bar, pick something from the list, then hit the space bar again, pick something from the list, and then hit the space bar again, and you'll find it is very, very, very powerful.
Okay.
If there's an opportunity, I can share my screen and show you that.
Maybe next time when we have that opportunity to dive deeper into that, I would welcome that.
Okay.
But right now we are almost out of time, and I do want to say that I appreciate knowing that. I did not know that. That's a
Yeah,
new
you just just type something in, hit the space bar, pick with your mouse, type something in, pick the space bar, pick with your mouse, and then when you're ready, hit the enter key or the little question mark, and you'll find the most relevant search results on the planet. And that's not me telling you that. That's what our customers are sharing with us. And it's totally free, absolutely free. There's no cost to use it, and it's like an SEO tool that you can use ungated. And then if you have a website, please become a member, and you can do that by listing your website and then contributing into the Search Triggers community and having access to our premium tools and our premium search engine. All of that's waiting for you at earthgrid with a GRID.com.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that all with us, and thank you very much for your time, Victor. I'm sure that the Limitless Nation has been inspired by your story as well as everything that you've had to say. I know for me, it was a massive amount of value as well as just information. That was a lot. And
it's just the tip of the iceberg, my friend.
It is. It is. Well, until next time, this is Donovan saying stay limitless.
Well, that's a wrap. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the word subscribe. And if you want to go deeper on learning on what you need to do to hunt your future, make sure you watch the interview that I've done with Donovan on what you need to do to hunt your future on every aspect of your being. This allows you to live a limitless life on every aspect of your life starting from today's forward. Plus, you are going to receive tips and tricks on what you need to do to tackle your day, tackle your challenges on every situation, every single time. So go ahead and download it right now, and until then, stay limitless forever.